I wasn't suspicious. Not really. Not in the way that makes people check phones or scroll through social media with narrowed eyes. If anything, I'd always been the trusting type, the kind of husband who believed in giving space, in assuming the best, in not sweating the occasional late night or unread message. But trust isn't always broken in obvious ways. Sometimes it slips quietly through the cracks, and you don't realize it's gone until you're staring at a picture that makes your heart stop. That night started like any other Friday. I was driving home from work, stuck in traffic, debating between ordering takeout or eating the sad leftovers in our fridge. Haley had texted earlier to say she was going to a quick team toast at a place called Rosen and Vine, and she'd probably be home late. That wasn't unusual. Her job came with dinners, drinks, networking, the whole branding meets strategy culture. I figured I'd just order food and catch up on emails. Rosen and Vine was actually where I ordered from. I hadn't planned it that way. It just popped into my head while I was browsing delivery apps. I used to surprise her with food from there. Back when we were still figuring each other out. Back when things felt lighter. While waiting for the order, I opened Instagram and typed in the restaurant's name, mostly out of boredom. That's when I saw it. A freshly posted image on their official page. Captioned, Friday night cheer. A quick team toast before the weekend begins. Bottle with popping cork. #workfamily. #Rosenandvine. There were 5 people in the photo, maybe 6 if you counted the arm reaching in from the side. All of them in business attire, clinking glasses in that overly staged way that companies think looks spontaneous. The photo would have been forgettable, except right in the center, smiling like she hadn't smiled in months, was Haley. She was wearing a royal blue dress. That one stopped me cold. I knew that dress. It had been tucked away in the back of her closet for at least 3 years, worn only once to a friend's engagement party. She said it didn't fit her style anymore, too flashy, too fitted. Yet there she was, in it, looking radiant, almost glowing. But it wasn't the dress that really got me. It was her posture. Her left hand was holding a champagne glass mid-toast. Her right hand was resting gently on the shoulder of the man seated next to her. And not just touching it in a casual way. It was placed deliberately, like she belonged there, like she was used to that spot, like she'd forgotten anyone else might ever see them that way. I stared at the image for a long time, trying to rationalize it. My first instinct wasn't anger, it was confusion. Maybe even denial. Maybe this guy was just her coworker. Maybe it was just how the photo happened to be framed. But the longer I looked, the more it gnawed at me. The smile she wore wasn't her usual professional smile. It was softer. *mate. Familiar. I tapped on the restaurant's tagged location. Scrolling through other photos from the evening, I found 2 more images where she appeared in the background. In one, she was laughing, her head tilted toward that same man. In another, she was caught mid-conversation, her hand lightly grazing his forearm. That's when my stomach dropped, because this wasn't the first time I'd seen them together. Earlier that week, Tuesday, I had reviewed footage from our kitchen's small security camera. It's one of those motion-triggered devices we installed back when we got our dog, Charlie. It catches about 12 seconds anytime someone enters or exits the room between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. I rarely check it, but I had noticed a strange alert the night before and out of curiosity clicked through. The clip was short, time-stamped 12:14 a.m. It showed Haley barefoot, in leggings and one of my old t-shirts, tiptoeing into the kitchen. She had her phone to her ear, whispering urgently. I couldn't hear the audio, but her expression was tense. She kept glancing toward the hallway. At one point, she turned slightly, and I caught her mouthing something. Just a single word I couldn't quite read, but it looked like soon. It had stayed with me. Not enough to make accusations, but enough to create an itch I hadn't been able to scratch. And now this photo, this night, this dress, this man, it wasn't a coincidence. I picked up the takeout, still unsure what I was feeling. A mix of cold clarity and nauseating disbelief. I didn't go home right away. I parked a block away and just sat with it for a while. Just me, the bag of cooling food, and the sound of her voice in my head saying she'd be home late. The truth is, I'd already taken a small step days before. Maybe part of me had sensed it coming. Haley had mentioned she was helping her team prep a pitch for her boss, a guy named Eric who was notorious for having zero personal boundaries and even less interest in employee welfare. She had joked that her department was trying to feed him enough buzzwords to make him forget we're behind schedule. I saw an opportunity. Quiet, strategic. I went back to the restaurant 2 days before their team dinner and asked for the manager. I'd met him once before, when I'd organized a surprise birthday dinner for Haley a couple of years ago. His name was Peter. Older guy, kind eyes. I told him I needed a favor. That a small flash drive would be dropped off the day of the dinner, labeled with a note, for Eric campaign reference materials. I said it was part of a presentation and that it was very important Eric see it at dinner. Peter didn't ask questions. He agreed to deliver it personally to the table. What he didn't know was what was actually on the drive. 2 files. The first, that motion-captured kitchen clip from our security system. Haley whispering, her body language nervous, as if she thought someone might overhear her. The second, an older video from a hotel lobby I had managed to pull from a security team I knew through work. The footage was grainy but clear enough. It showed Haley seated at a dinner table in a hotel restaurant, beside the same man from the Rosen and Vine picture. Her hand disappeared under the table. A moment later, his lips parted in a subtle exhale. She leaned in close, whispered something, and then they both laughed. I hadn't planned to use the video. I hadn't planned to do anything, really. I had just saved it to my personal drive in a folder named Miscellaneous. But the moment I saw that blue dress again, that hand, that pose, I knew I needed to act. And I didn't want to confront her in a shouting match. I didn't want a dramatic showdown. I wanted the truth to land where it needed to, not just with me, but with someone else who had the power to see it for what it was. That night, she came home around 10:30, a little earlier than expected. She walked through the door with the same air of nonchalance she always had, dropping her keys into the bowl and kicking off her heels like nothing had changed. She smiled when she saw me in the kitchen. You ordered Rosen and Vine? You should have waited, I could have brought something back. I asked her if she had fun. Yeah, she said. It was fine. Eric was in one of his moods, but Rick saved it with his weird marketing metaphors. That name, Rick. So now it had a name. I nodded slowly, setting down my fork. I pulled up the Rosen and Vine Instagram post and turned the phone around. She looked at it, blinked, then smirked. Jake, seriously? She said, laughing. You're acting like I'm caught red-handed. That's literally just a company dinner. Look at everyone else. We're all crammed together. You know how it is. I didn't say anything, just kept my eyes on her. She looked at the image again, more carefully this time. Her smile faltered only a little, but enough. It's just a hand, she added. Not like I'm making out with the guy. Then, with forced lightness. Come on, are you really going to act jealous now? You never care about this stuff. That's when I knew. The deflection, the humor, the subtle pushback. I'd seen this tactic before, not from her, but from people who had something to hide and needed to dance around it without outright lying. I didn't accuse her. I didn't mention the drive. I didn't say a word about what Eric had likely watched at the dinner table. Instead, I just picked up the plates and started cleaning up. She asked if I was okay. I said, I'm just tired. And that was the truth. Not angry, not panicked, just tired of pretending not to see what was already obvious. The strange, the things you remember after the truth comes out. Moments you brushed off, instincts you buried, signs you chose to ignore. All of them come back with alarming clarity, like rewinding a film you didn't realize was a horror movie until the 3rd act. After that night, the photo, the blue dress, her flippant smile, I couldn't stop myself. My mind replayed everything that had seemed odd over the past few months. At the time, each detail felt harmless, just quirks of routine, shifts in mood. But now it all felt orchestrated. I remember the first time I noticed her phone habits change. It started gradually. She used to leave it on the counter when she cooked, sometimes in the living room while she showered. But then, almost overnight, it became her constant companion. She'd take it into the bathroom, slip it under her pillow at night, even prop it up while doing her makeup in the morning. When I asked her about it, she'd say, "I'm just waiting on a client response," or "the team group chat never stops." The explanations were always smooth, always fast, like she'd rehearsed them. I should have paid closer attention when she stopped charging it in the kitchen, like we always did. That had been our thing, no phones in the bedroom at night. It was one of those quiet boundaries we set early in our marriage to keep things sacred. I hadn't even noticed when that line quietly vanished. And I hadn't noticed how much I missed the version of her who used to leave it all behind just to talk with me. Then there were her early mornings. She was never a morning person. For the first 6 years of our marriage, I was the one brewing coffee while she groaned from under a blanket. But suddenly, she was waking up at 5:45 a.m. sharp, slipping into leggings and makeup, saying she was starting gym mornings again. At first, I was impressed. She looked great, more energetic. I figured maybe she was just getting into a new rhythm. But it struck me one morning as I watched her leave in full makeup and styled hair. Wasn't this a bit much for a 6 a.m. workout? I joked about it once, asking if she was secretly training for a modeling gig. She laughed, kissed my cheek, and said, "Gotta impress the treadmill, right?" But the laugh was tight, almost calculated. Her behavior outside the house shifted too. She started going to more client happy hours, more impromptu brainstorm dinners. I wanted to be the supportive husband, so I didn't question it. But I noticed how she always mentioned the same name, Rick. At first, it was casual. "Rick thinks we need to rework the campaign's intro," or "Rick had this funny idea about using a llama in the ad." Don't ask. I smiled along. I even laughed once, thinking it was great that she had a work buddy who made the grind more tolerable. But then his name came up more than anyone else's. Rick said this. Rick did that. Rick was brilliant. Rick was hilarious. Rick was charming. After a while, I realized I knew more about Rick's daily habits than some of my own friends. And worse, I'd never met the guy. Not once. There was one night I remember vividly. She came home later than usual, well past midnight. She reeked of wine and perfume. Her cheeks were flushed, and her heels clicked too loud on the kitchen tile. I asked her how the dinner went, and she said, "Exhausting. Just a long meeting that turned into more drinks than expected." I nodded. I didn't ask who she was with. She didn't offer it. I don't know why I didn't push then. Maybe I didn't want to seem insecure. Maybe I didn't want to know the answer. Now, I wish I had asked. There were the little things too. The shift in tone when she said goodnight. The way she started going to bed before me, even though she used to wait up. The increase in locked drawers. The forgotten perfume bottles in her bag. The sudden reorganization of her workspace. One night, I picked up a blouse she left on the back of the couch and caught a scent that wasn't hers. Not her usual perfume. Something woodier, muskier, male. I remember thinking maybe she just brushed against someone at work. An elevator, a meeting, anything but what my gut whispered. One night, I decided to check our shared calendar. We had a simple system, color-coded events, synced to our phones. Hers was blue. Mine was green. I noticed she had deleted several entries from the past 2 weeks. Dinners that had once appeared in her schedule were suddenly gone. I couldn't prove they'd ever been there. I only knew because I remembered planning to pick up food on one of those nights while she was out with the team. I asked her about it, and she said the meetings had been canceled. "No big deal," she added. Didn't think it mattered, but it did. It mattered because she never used to delete anything. She was obsessive about her calendar. Prided herself on being the most prepared person in the room. And then there was the silence. Not the absence of noise. The absence of connection. We used to talk at night. About nothing and everything. About how stupid her boss was, or how the dog slept on her feet, or how we should visit her parents more often, even though we both hated the idea. Now, we barely said goodnight. If I tried to make a joke, she'd smile, but the kind of smile you give a stranger who holds the door open. Polite, distant. And then came the texts. I noticed how often she laughed at her phone. Not just smiled, laughed. Real, full laughs. The kind she hadn't shared with me in months. I asked once what was so funny. She said, "Just the group chat. Work memes. You wouldn't get it." Maybe I wouldn't, but I would have liked the chance to. Sometimes I caught her staring at the screen with that look. The soft one. The kind you give someone you're thinking about too much. The kind of look I hadn't seen directed at me in a long, long time. And then, the nail in the coffin, one that seemed so insignificant at the time. We were watching a show together one Saturday night. Some crime drama we used to binge together. A character had just found out their partner was cheating. I expected her to react, maybe comment on the twist. But she didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She just stared, emotionless, like it was background noise. Then she stood, said she was tired, and went to bed. No reaction. No empathy. No discomfort. That's when it really hit me. She wasn't even trying to hide the distance anymore. After that, I started saving things. Screensh *TS. Calendar changes. Passive notes. Not because I wanted to confront her, yet, but because I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy. That I wasn't just being paranoid or insecure. That there was something beneath the surface she didn't want me to see. It was around that time I began taking quiet inventory of our life. Looking for evidence not just in moments, but in patterns. In routines. In the ways people behave when they're hiding something. When they're splitting themselves between two realities. And all signs pointed to the same conclusion. She was slipping away. Not loudly. Not in flames. Just silently. Like she was waiting for me to stop noticing. And I almost did. Almost. I told myself I wasn't going to follow through. That dropping the flash drive at Rosen and Vine was a moment of emotional impulse. That I was bluffing, testing her, maybe. Part of me even hoped it would go unnoticed, brushed aside, discarded without ever being seen. But I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I wanted it to be seen. I wanted the truth exposed, not through confrontation or accusations, but by something more surgical, clean, irrefutable, something I could sit behind the glass and watch unfold. So that's what I did. I parked 2 blocks down from Rosen and Vine the evening of her team toast. A warm Friday dusk had settled in, the kind where the breeze carries the hum of weekend beginnings. Music from passing cars, laughter from patios, glasses clinking from sidewalk tables. I sat in my car, heart pacing like I just finished a run, watching the front of the restaurant from a safe distance. Not stalking, just observing. I told myself that more than once. At 7:16 p.m. Haley stepped out of a black car service sedan. She looked immaculate. The blue dress again, paired this time with those black stilettos she only wore when she needed to feel confident, when she was trying to be noticed. She walked in with a group, laughing easily, her hand brushing the arm of someone beside her. Rick. It was the first time I saw him in person. Tall, impeccably dressed. Confident in a way that made him look like the kind of man who'd walk into a room already assuming it was his. That detail hit me harder than it should have. I watched as the host led their group toward the private dining area in the back. The frosted glass doors shut, but I stayed where I was, eyes fixed, stomach knotted. That flash drive. Peter had said he'd hand it to Eric at the beginning of the meal, and he did. At 7:38, I saw Peter approach the room, a small envelope in hand. A minute later, he emerged alone. I stayed in the car. 10 minutes passed, then 20. At 8:03, the doors opened just slightly, and I caught a glimpse of the table through the shifting glass. Eric, her boss, was holding something in his hand. A flash drive. He looked puzzled, frowning. His eyes narrowed as he stared across the table. Then, without warning, he stood. Everyone at the table fell silent. Haley, still mid-laugh, froze. Her eyes darted to Eric, then to the flash drive. Her face changed, first confusion, then fear. She reached out, whispering something. He said nothing, just dropped the drive onto the table like it burned him. Then he walked out. Haley's smile vanished. She looked at Rick, then quickly stood, muttered something to the table and moved away from the group. But she didn't head for the exit. She went to the restroom. I sat frozen, watching the entrance. She didn't come out for 10 minutes. She didn't come out at all, actually. Rick eventually left, alone. Checking his phone the entire time, his expression unreadable. The others trickled out slowly, eyes low, like kids dismissed from class after something awful happened. I didn't see Haley again. I drove home and waited. She didn't return that night. When I woke the next morning, I found her in the kitchen. She was barefoot, her makeup from the night before smeared beneath her eyes like war paint. Her heels were in her hand, her phone off. She stood by the sink, silent, staring at the window like she'd forgotten where she was. I didn't speak. She turned slowly, eyes red, voice hoarse. "You did that." It wasn't a question. I nodded once. She exhaled, slow and shallow. Her voice cracked. She tried again. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. And for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to shout, to accuse. I was calm, hollow maybe, but steady. I asked one question. "How long?" She looked down. "A few weeks." It started during those late-night meetings. He was attentive. At first, it was just conversations. Late messages. Then drinks after. Then, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. I waited. She looked up. "It wasn't about him. It wasn't even about you. I don't know what it was. I wasn't looking to." She cut herself off. "That's a lie. I think I was looking for something. Just didn't realize it until I found it." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the explanation was so predictable, so textbook, it didn't even sting the way I expected. She kept talking. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that I'd end it before anyone got hurt. I raised an eyebrow, and that worked out great. She flinched. There was a long silence between us. The kind that feels like someone's dropped a curtain on your life and all you can hear is the creaking of your own thoughts. Finally, I said, "I need you to leave the house." She looked startled. "Jake, I'm not asking for forever," I said, still calm. "But right now I need space. I can't share this house with someone who's still pretending we're okay." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she nodded. She didn't pack much, just a bag and her laptop. No theatrics, no dramatic pleading. She just walked to the door, looked back once and said, "I'm sorry." I didn't answer. She left, and the silence that followed was the loudest thing I've ever heard. The next few days blurred together. I returned to work, made meals I didn't eat, listened to the creaks in the floorboards like they were conversations I was missing. Her absence wasn't just physical. It was like she had been erased from the air itself. But the haunting part? She had left traces behind. Her robe behind the bathroom door. A half-finished journal on the nightstand. Her scent still embedded in the pillowcase. I didn't clean them up. Not because I missed her, but because I wanted to sit with the reality. Not escape it. Not yet. On the fourth day, her boss called. "Eric, I'm assuming you sent the drive," he said. No preamble. "I did." "I thought so," he said. "I've suspended her. There'll be an internal review." "I'm not interested in public drama," I said flatly. "You won't get any from me. But thank you for the honesty." That was the entire call. That evening, Haley returned briefly. She didn't knock, just came in with a sealed envelope and placed it on the kitchen table. "I'm resigning," she said. "They didn't fire me yet, but I'm stepping down. It's done." I opened the envelope. Inside was her signed resignation, dated that morning. She hesitated before speaking again. "Rick's been transferred. Out of state. They didn't say it was related, but it was." She looked around the house like it was a memory. "I'm not asking to come back," she said. "I just wanted you to know that it's over. And not because I got caught. Because it should have never happened." I nodded. "Good." She opened her mouth to say something else, but stopped. Then she walked out the door. This time I didn't watch her go. And for once I didn't feel the urge to. The first day after she left, I didn't touch a single thing in the house. I didn't make the bed. Didn't unload the dishwasher. Didn't even open the windows. Everything remained exactly as it was the morning she last stood in the doorway. Shadows cast in familiar places, traces of her in the fabric of our routine. I wasn't preserving it because I missed her. I was preserving it because I needed to understand it, to sit in it, to feel the weight of what had actually happened. There's a myth that when someone leaves, the house gets quieter. But the truth is, it doesn't. It gets louder. The silence has its own shape, its own voice. It echoes in empty coffee cups left on the counter, in the dent on the couch cushion where she used to sit, in the muffled way the air hums when no one is speaking. I noticed things I hadn't before. Her robe still behind the bathroom door, the half-used lotion bottle she always left on her side of the bed. I hadn't realized how often I used to fall asleep to the sound of her brushing her teeth, or how even the clatter of her rings hitting the nightstand had been part of my nightly rhythm. Now all of that was just gone. And yet I didn't throw anything away. Not right away. I didn't strip the bed or box up her things. I didn't erase her scent from the pillow. Maybe that was weakness. Or maybe it was part of the process, letting the space confront me instead of pretending it was something else. I kept thinking about what she said when she dropped off the resignation letter. "I'm not asking to come back." It echoed in my head, over and over. There was no apology in that statement. No plea. Just acknowledgement. And strangely, I respected that. It was the most honest thing she'd said in weeks. For 4 days, there was no contact. Not a message. Not a missed call. Nothing. I thought I'd feel some version of freedom, that I'd stretch out on the bed, sleep deeply for the first time in months, maybe even make pancakes and reclaim the house like some movie character rebuilding his life. But what I felt instead was a kind of suspended reality. I wasn't mourning. I wasn't moving on. I was just existing. I went to work, ate half meals, ignored the texts from friends who sensed something was off but didn't want to ask directly. I told myself I was fine. And then on the 4th evening I got a call. It was from her boss, Eric. He kept it professional. Brief. "She's out," he said. Voluntarily. We were conducting an internal review, but she turned in a formal resignation letter before we could even get to a second interview. I figured. "I just wanted to thank you," he added. "You didn't come to me with drama. You let the truth speak for itself." That was the point. There was a pause on the line, like he wanted to say more but didn't know if he should. Eventually, he just said, "I hope you're doing all right." I didn't know how to answer that, so I said nothing. That night, she came back. Not for a conversation. Not to explain. Just for a moment. She knocked first, which surprised me. And when I opened the door, there she was, standing like a stranger. She didn't cross the threshold. Instead, she handed me a plain white envelope. "This is everything," she said. "My final paperwork. My badge. My laptop passcode. I didn't want you to have to deal with any of it." I opened it after she left. Everything was there. Even a handwritten note addressed to her supervisor. No mention of me. No mention of Rick. Just a clean ending. And at the bottom, one line, "This has been earned, not given. And I accept that." That hit harder than I expected. I don't know what I was hoping for. A confession? A breakdown? Some emotional monologue that would crack the air wide open? But she gave me none of that. Only silence. Only consequence. It was strange. The moment she walked away that night, I didn't feel hate. I didn't feel pity. I felt weight. Like her absence wasn't just physical. Like it had volume. Like I could feel her ghost moving through the house. But it wasn't haunting me. It was reminding me. I sat on the couch with the envelope in my lap for a long time. I kept looking at the closed door, wondering if she was still out there. If she was hoping I'd call after her. I didn't, and she didn't knock again. The following morning, I got up and stood in the bedroom doorway for a long time. The bed still looked slept in. Her side still dipped. I considered flipping the mattress, starting fresh. But I didn't. Instead, I stripped the sheets and threw them into the washer. It felt like the most aggressive thing I'd done all week. That weekend, I started cleaning. I don't mean straightening up, I mean really cleaning. Closets, drawers, cabinets I hadn't opened in a year. I found a collection of birthday cards we'd written to each other in our first few years of marriage. Back when we used to sign them with inside jokes and doodles. Back when forever didn't feel like a question. I didn't throw them away. I placed them in a small shoebox and stuck them at the back of the hall closet. I didn't know if I was keeping them for memory or evidence. Maybe both. There was no part of me that wanted revenge. No part of me that wanted to win whatever this was. I just wanted truth, stability, honesty in a house that had felt dishonest for too long. Sunday afternoon, I got another knock on the door. This time, it wasn't her. It was the delivery guy dropping off a package she'd forgotten to cancel. A subscription box, some makeup thing. I almost tossed it, but then I noticed something strange. Her name wasn't on the label. Mine was. Inside was a card. "You're going to be okay, even if I never am." No name, just that. No way to know when she'd written it. Maybe before she packed. Maybe after she resigned. Maybe weeks ago, before I ever saw the picture from Rosen and Vine. It didn't change anything, but I kept it. I tucked it into the shoebox, closed the closet door, and stood in the hallway for a moment. Then I walked to the living room, opened all the windows, and let the breeze fill the house. For the first time in a long while, I breathed without effort. No permission, no waiting, just air, just space, just me. It was exactly 1 week after the last time I saw her. The weather had shifted, August heat giving way to the early signs of September, the air crisper, the light softer in the mornings. I hadn't marked the date on a calendar, but my body knew. My brain knew. I woke up that day with a strange alertness, like I was anticipating something I couldn't name. Sure enough, it came. Around 10 a.m., I opened the front door to grab the mail and found it resting on the doormat. A plain envelope, no postage, no return address, just my name in handwriting I could recognize from a mile away. Haley's. I didn't open it right away. I carried it inside and set it on the kitchen counter. I made coffee, checked my work email, folded a load of laundry. Anything to avoid sitting down and pulling the truth out of that envelope like a magician revealing his final card. But eventually I caved. Inside was a single page. Handwritten. Not typed. Not rushed. The heading wasn't, "I'm sorry." It wasn't even, "Dear Jake." It was just this. What I didn't say. I read it once. Then again. Then a third time. Each time a different line hit harder than the last. She had made a list raw, unfiltered. Not dramatic. Not poetic. Just honest. Brutally so. I'll never forget some of those lines. They burned. I lied about working late. Not just once. Not just with Rick. I told him things I never told you. Not because they were special, but because they were secret. I deleted messages before I got home. Sometimes I stayed in my car just to avoid walking through the front door. I missed being seen. Not by a stranger, but by someone who didn't carry history with my name. You trusted me fully. I used that as a shield to keep going. And then, near the bottom of the page, you were never boring. You were just stable. I confused that for complacency because I didn't know how to sit still with someone safe. That one cracked something open inside me. Not in anger, in grief, because it wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about how deeply we had misunderstood each other. How long we had gone living in parallel versions of the same life, barely touching the truth of it. She didn't ask for forgiveness. That struck me too. There was no, "Please take me back." No promises. No manipulations. Just facts. And pain. The last line of her letter read, "I hurt the one person who loved me without condition. I don't expect to be let back into your life. But I needed you to know that I see it now. I see all of it. And I'll carry that weight. Not you." I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after that, the letter flat on the wood, my hands pressed on either side of it like I was trying to steady myself against the tide. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just absorbed it. It's strange, the clarity that comes after you read someone else's truth in their own handwriting. There's no yelling, no performative guilt, no desperate explanations, just black ink and white paper, and the realization that it's finally all out in the open. That night I didn't reply, but I did take a walk. I ended up at the park we used to visit when we were still dating, the one with the stone benches and the quiet pond that always had a few stray ducks floating in lazy circles. We used to go there on Sunday mornings with coffee and talk about the future, like it was some destination we'd already purchased tickets to. I hadn't been back since. And that's where I saw her. Not waiting, not pacing, just sitting. She didn't look up right away. Her head was bent, her hands resting on her knees. She wasn't crying. She wasn't doing anything, really, just being. When she did notice me, she didn't stand, didn't wave, just gave a small nod, like two people acknowledging each other from opposite ends of a long, winding road. I didn't walk toward her. She didn't call out to me. We just sat there, 10 yards apart, separated by air and time and every mistake in between. After a while, she stood. She didn't approach. She didn't plead. She just walked away. No dramatics. No last words. Just silence. And strangely, that meant more to me than anything else she could have done. Because for once, she wasn't trying to rewrite the ending. She was letting it be. Later that night, I opened her letter again. Read it slowly. Took my time with each line. I noticed something I hadn't the first time. There were tiny indentations in the paper where her pen had pressed harder. Like certain lines required more effort to write. The line about being seen. Especially. The line about me being safe. She hadn't written that to win me over. She'd written it because it was the first thing she was finally honest about. And I respected that. Not because it fixed anything, but because it was real. The next morning, I didn't do anything big. I didn't throw the letter away. I didn't text her. I didn't reach out. I just folded the paper once. Slid it into the same shoebox where I'd placed the old birthday cards, the forgotten photos, the leftover traces of who we'd been. Then I closed the box and put it away, not because I was done grieving, but because I was done needing answers. I had them now. I just didn't know what to do with them yet.